Welcome to People Love Process. Not all vector art requires an extensive use of the pen tool. If you think in shapes, you can create a lot of content without ever having to wrangle with Bezier curves and the handles that control them. So in this movie, we'll use simple shape building methods to produce a fun geometric style design that anyone can create. So let's get started. And mostly on a lot of my movies, I don't want them to be over too long, I guess you can say. And so I tend to focus on teachable moments within the creative process. But on this one, it's as if you're sitting in my studio watching over the shoulder. So I'm going to take this sketch. This is just a simple pencil sketch. I scan these in at about 600 to 800 PPI, save it out as a TIFF image, place it into Illustrator on this layer, and usually what I do, and some people have asked, why don't you go into layer controls and dim it? I never do that. I just simply adjust the opacity, most cases 15%, lock the layer just so it won't move. I drop guides because you can see this is pretty symmetric, so we'll be able to create some elements on like the left side and reflect it or to the right. And then on a layer above it, which I'll just call the build layer, is where I start. Now, when I create all my artwork, I like to use simple magenta lines. And these are like prefabricated graphic styles that are in every new document profile I create. And it's 1 point, 0.75, 0.5, and I believe this one is 0.25. And so we'll just start off with the 1 point. Now, why do I create those? Because at certain zoom levels, it's easier to use smaller strokes than a big fat stroke. So, but this is where I start. So we're going to go to the shape building tools. We're going to use these a lot because I want to create, the first element I want to create is the mouth. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of create a elliptical shape based off of the center point, and that'll be about that curve. I'm going to clone this shape. I have a keyboard shortcut F3, which is just Command-C, Command-F. It clones the shape and it brings it to the front, and then I'll just expand this circle like that, making sure the original circle is on top. And once again, I have another keyboard shortcut to do that. Otherwise, you always have to go to Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. Notice I have F5, so I just hit F5, so I never have to go to the pull-down menu. So we're just going to create a giant donut here. Go to Pathfinder, minus front. And all we're going to do now is we're going to create a throwaway shape. And all a throwaway shape is just creating a shape for no other reason than to edit another shape in our design. Once we have this, we're going to go ahead and clone this. I'll go to the reflect tool, find a central anchor point like this, reflect it over, select these two. We'll go ahead and unite them. Remember, it just defaults to a group, so I always make sure it's a compound. And I have F key set up for that, F7, select the donut shape we originally made in minus front. Then I can just select this top part and get rid of it. Now, the reason why I did this is where I'll zoom in a little bit, is because I'm just going to take these anchor points here, and with the corner fillet, I'm just going to round it. So it's really not hard if you think in shapes to create a shape like this. You wouldn't want to try to do it with the pen tool. It just, I don't know, it'd just be a lot harder in my opinion. And then I want this to be the exact width. That's why I dropped this guide over here. So we're just going to select this and we'll just bring it over until it snaps to that guide. So I know it's the same width as what I'm going to build the head. And then if I want to create the inner part of the mouth, this is where I can go to Object, Path, Offset Path. Right now it's doing it in the positive. Let's go, I don't know, we'll try minus 15. And not quite. We'll do 20, see what that looks like. That's not bad. That's not bad. You know, it's at this point where I might come back to these curves and pull them out like that. And I might do this at a slightly different angle. So this is where you won't always get things exactly the way you want, or it doesn't visually look the way you want. In that case, you'll want to kind of art direct yourself. So I'm just going to redo a few steps. We'll go ahead and unite this, make sure it's on top of the mouse shape, and I'll just trim it like that. Now, you know what? Now, well, I just realized I have these anchor points in here, so I might have to rebuild this all together, but that's okay. That's usually what I do anyway. But what I'm going to do is even though I'm going to go ahead and create this shape again, so we'll do that. I'm going to toss this since it had extra anchor points we don't need. And I'm just going to recreate my shapes that made up the mouth. Like that. I might go a little bigger. Bring it up kind of like that. Then I'll clone it. Then I'll go ahead and I usually pull it out further than what I need. Then I bring it back to adjust it to about what I'm going after, which is that. Make sure, once again, this shape's on top. Select this, minus front. So now we have that donut again. This shape, make sure this is on front. Clone it, reflect tool, central anchor point, reflect it, grab both of these. Unite it, turn it into a compound, select the donut. Edit the donut, then we can take top shape. We don't need that anymore. And we're just going to adjust those curves again. I think this one will probably work better. Yeah, that looks way better. So you're never going to get it exact the first time. On this, I'll just drag it over like that. So it's on the edge where the head goes. Now we'll go ahead and offset it. I think this is going to just look better. And we'll do, I think we did 20 minus. And I think that looks pretty good. So we'll go ahead and go with that. That looks good. A lot of these shapes obviously are circles, like the eyes here. And these that are in his kind of brow, I guess you can say. So we'll go ahead and create his nose first. Nudge it down a little bit. This is where I use a rounding plugin because I can do that really easy. And then I can isolate these and drag them up. And actually, I won't drag them all the way because we'll base his eye like that to get the sizing. Then I'll just put it into the correct alignment like that. I'll clone that. And I'll go ahead and lower it like that. Not everything needs to be a closed shape. So in terms of these, I'll just cut out this. And then on this, I'll drag it up till it snaps to the point that's at the 3 o'clock position of this shape. As I go and I size different paths, they're going to get larger or smaller. So I usually just will select them all at some point and then sample one of them so they're all the same, just so I can see how it's working out. Here's kind of a cool plugin. And this is the reason why I use it, is we're going to create this little nostril shape. Well, one of the reasons I use the rounding plugin is just so I can create a shape like that pretty quick from a circle. A circle won't let you round it with AI's default tool because it's a circle. It's not smart enough to go, yeah, but it could be a squared corner. Nope, they don't think that way. They're too literal. So that's why I like plugins, because at times a plugin just makes the process easier. And We might go a little smaller on this, and I'm going to zoom in because this is a cool one. Now I want this to come up and just hit right at the bottom of the eye. Well, in Illustrator, you're just going to eyeball it if you want to do that. So here's a cool plugin called Kaleidoscribe, and this is one of the 3 tools within Kaleidoscribe. And what you do is you bring it up and notice these nodes that show up, like that magenta one there. If I bring it over here, you can see it showing up there and on the eye. And those magenta nodes say you're at the perfect tangent, let go. And now there is no guesswork. It's mathematically perfect. And that's why I love plugins, because plugins allow you to do that kind of precision where Illustrator doesn't provide that, and you just be eyeballing it, trying to get it to look as close as you can. So I just wanted to show you that. We're going to create these detail in the eyes here. And I'm going to clone this because I'm going to bring it up, snap it there. We'll select both of these. We'll go to the shape blending tool, click on the end of each line. This is way too many. Go in here, go to steps. This is 20. Right here, I only want 1. We just want to find the middle there, and we can preview it. That's it. That's what I want. We'll have to expand it like that. Sometimes you have to ungroup it, but I think this is all we need. So I'll go ahead and clone that. Find the center and reflect it down. Actually, these top 2 we don't even need. We can get rid of those. And the easiest way to deal with artwork like this that goes over is just use the new shape building tool. It's ideal for this kind of work, in my opinion. And if you hold Option down with both the inner circle and the lines selected, you can just trim those off. So that's how we create that. Let's go ahead and select this, because what we're going to do is I'm going to drag this over until it snaps to the edge here, so I know it's in perfect alignment with the edge of the mouth. I'll resample this path so we can see it the same size like that. I think that'll be fine. We're going to go like this to get that straight edge over here. This won't matter because this is going to end up fusing with the shape on the other side. So if we take this, I'll clone it, find a central anchor point, and that's going to reflect over. I'll select these 2, and we'll go to Pathfinder, and we'll go Unite like that. I can go to the scissor tool. I'm just going to cut these because we don't need this bottom path here. Get rid of it. All these now we're going to bring this all the way down here because it's going to go into, I guess you can call it a beard of sorts. Actually, I already have this kind of U shape, so what I'm going to do is just clone it. And I just made a copy of the nose here, so bring it down until it gets to, that looks good. Select both of these, snap it to the bottom of the mouth. Now that we have this, I'll clone it again, bring it over here. We'll use it to create the other shapes like this. But you can see it's larger, so I'll scale it down like that. Bring it over into position. And now, if I select these 2, I'm going to use that same shape building or shape blending tool. And we'll blend it from this one to this one. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not going to do it that way. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to clone this again, bring this over, snap it here, clone it again, snap it here, and we'll just do it a third time. I'll take this, I'll do it that way. That's a lot easier. Then bring it up, bring these into position where I want them. Something around there, and that one like this. Now, because we have a path that goes all the way to the bottom of the mouth, we don't need this path on this one, so I'll just delete that. It just needs to go into here, because all of these are going to be expanded, and if you have 2 paths directly piggybacking on the next, it's going to add extra anchor points, and so it's easier to drag it down, in this case, snap it there, because this one we can snap to the bottom of the mouth. And we'll do the same thing over here, snap it down. I'll bring this to the bottom. Notice this is a good case of how Illustrator won't snap at times. Really kind of frustrating. They know about it, they've never fixed it, but if you zoom in certain zoom levels, it will force it to snap. Kind of frustrating. You might run into that before where it acts like it's snapping and then you zoom in later only to discover it didn't. I run into that as well. So we'll bring it there. We'll end up joining that and getting rid of it. But what I want to do first is I want to take all of these, clone them, Command-C, Command-F, use the reflect tool, reflect them to the other side, and then I'll drag this up and snap it there. Now I can select those two, Command-J. Command-J kind of welds. It joins these 2 points. So once we've done that, we can select these anchors. And because they're on a straight line, we can just remove them because we don't need it. So I tend to clean up my art like that as I go along. Let's keep kind of marching forward here. This one, we can just use the line tool, bring this down, snap it like that. That's fine. We can select all of these, clone them, find a central anchor point, reflect it over. So we have a lot of the face done now. This part here, this is where I'll clone this shape, and all I'm going to do here, like that. Let's go ahead and zoom in. Now, this is one case where I can't really use the collider scribe because it has to be centered off of this circular shape, and if I did that, I'll just show you. If I did it and I brought this up, it'll find that tangent, but it's no longer centered with the original eye. So unfortunately, I wish there was a way you could use it with that, but I don't know of one. So this is where I would go into outline mode. It used to be called keyline mode. And I'll just, once again, eyeball it right about there. I think looks good. Go back, and now it's close enough to the tangent. We'll probably have to adjust that when we expand it just to make sure it's going to build it clean. But that's how I do it. So I'll select this. We'll go ahead and select this nostril shape because we're going to go to the shape building tool, hold Option down. Oops. Hold Option down and just get rid of the parts we don't want like that. So what we end up with is just that segment under the eye, a bag of the eye, I guess. We'll go ahead and clone it, find a central anchor point, reflect it over like that. And by the way, this style goes a lot faster, you know, when you're not talking. So there's that. Let's go ahead and create this, I don't know, this circular shape on his forehead. Oops. Snap it so it's the same width of his nose, like that. And I think up here, I think this is the case where I'm going to use the collider scribe because I'll just make it a little bigger. I'll go collider scribe tool, and I'll come up, and now I'm going to, nope. Let's go back to the scale. We'll zoom in here because I need to see what I'm doing. I'm going to go back to keyline mode. And then we'll eyeball it again to find the tangents, or close to. I think that's fine. That'll work. We'll select this, make a clone, and then I'm just going to scale it to be the inside of this. Something around there. And when you draw this kind of design, you don't even have to be perfect because this doesn't exactly align with what I created, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be because we can build it perfect. Now, one example of this stroke, it's going to merge into the bottom of this circular shape, but at the bottom here, it won't. So I don't want it flat cap. So this is where I'll go to stroke, and right now it's the flat cap. I'll do the round cap. That way, when it terminates at the end, it has a nice round on it. So I do that as well. Let's go ahead and create the detail over here. Then we'll focus on the wing. Create the inner shape, kind of like that. I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to go to Collider Scribe. I'm going to drag it down until it snaps with the top of the mouth. Clone it. It's easy to do the top. We'll just snap it to the anchor. So that one's easy. This looks like a good size, so I like to keep continuity, so I'll just use that for this circle right there. We'll use the line tool. We'll put a line here. I think I want lines going over maybe. I'm not sure. I was thinking maybe putting a little line pattern there, but I might wait until later when I know exactly like the size width I'm going to be doing. Because right now these strokes are like I'm building a non-orthodox 1.1. So if I select everything, I go to my graphic styles. Now it's all 1 point. I'll beef it up because it needs to be beefed up, but at this point I'm not going to worry about it. So we'll go ahead and I'll create the ear shape over here. Once again, pretty simple, just elliptical shape. We'll make a copy of it, a clone if you will, and I'll scale it down from the center like that. This is where we can select the shape of the head. Go back to the shape building tool, hold Option down, and just get rid of the paths we don't want. I'll sample with the eyedropper to get the same weight on the stroke. Now we'll create the kind of earring ornaments I have there. I'll go back to the Collider Scribe plugin by Astute Graphics. This is where I'll drag it up until it hits right at the bottom of the ear. That's great. I might even size it down just a little bit. And I usually drag it away, then I'll drag it back with that tool and find that tangent. Now I'll go ahead and make a clone of this, scale it down, snap it there for the bottom. That looks good. All this detail here, once again, is just, we'll use the round cap on this. And I usually start at the bottom since I have a central anchor point at the curve of each of the pieces of the beard. And then I'll just bring this up from the bottom, kind of like that. Once again, I'll go ahead and use the shape of the nose. And I'm going to size all these teeth. Make a copy. Wait, yep, that's right. Right about there, I think looks good for that one. Move that one up there. This guy goes down. Now that I think about it, I think I'm going to put a tongue in here, so I'm not going to size that, bring this down too far, maybe a little further down. And here again is that no snapping. This one, we can just delete that. We don't need it. And then, again, no snapping because Illustrator likes to cause you grief at times. This one we can delete. And this one we can delete as well. Then I'll select the inner part of the mouth here with, well, actually the whole mouth, I guess. I guess we have that group. That doesn't even need to be grouped, so we're going to ungroup that because all I need is this and this. We'll use the shape building tool, hold Option, get rid of that. Select these, sample the mouth path, get those the same weight. Select these, clone them, Command C, Command F, find a central anchor point and reflect it over. Now, again, we don't need this because the tooth on the opposing side has a line that goes all the way up. So I try to remove those overlaps. Now, this is where the Collider Scribe tool will come in handy again. I just want to create a tongue shape, but once again, I'd have to eyeball it. So if I pull it down, go to the Collider Scribe tool, drag it up, it finds that tangent immediately, no guesswork, select the mouth, go to the shape building tool, hold Option down, and trim off the path I don't need. So you can see we have most everything we need for the face, minus the kind of a headdress and wings at the top. So I'm going to select these ears. We don't have those reflected, or this, or these two elements. And we'll copy them, Command C, Command F. I use F3. Find a central anchor point, reflect them over. So now we have most of it. We need to get the detail in the beard reflected. So we'll make a copy of those. Once again, central anchor point, reflect those over. Now we can focus on getting the top here made. So I think that's a little big, so we'll scale this down. Maybe a little, just about that's fine. Then I'm just going to bring this down about here. Select both these, select the head shape, go back to the shape building tool, hold Option down, and just trim off those paths we don't need. So all we're creating, in this case, let's go into isolation mode because sometimes I do that. I'm going a little faster than I should because we don't need these little legs here. We can get rid of those. So it's just one arch, one singular arch like this and the big one. Again, I'll select these, make sure they're same weight. Just as I'm building, I'll do that. And now on the wing, this part may seem a little tricky, but it really isn't. And to kind of guide us, I'm first going to just create a rectangle shape like that. Then I'm going to clone it. And I'm just going to take that copy and move it down like this. Duplicate it. I got that pretty close. It's almost the exact width. So I'm just going to scale it down just a little. And I did that just so I know what I'm doing is going to work well. And so I'll bring this all the way over, snap it to the central like that. I can take this and clone it, Command C, Command F. I'll just rotate it, bring it over here like that. Make sure it overlaps. You could even pull that up. And when I use the shape building tool, or Pathfinder that is, under Pathfinder options, you want to make sure you have remove redundant points turned on. Now, does it remove all of them? No, that's the ironic part about it. But these kind on straight lines, it almost always removes them. So if I go unite now, those are gone. And that's kind of what you want. Now, here's another reason I use the plugin to round at times, because on this, I like to round based off of just what I've visually drawn already. So I'll round that. And notice it has this node here. So I can take this other one and I can just bring it down and I align it right with that node. And now it's the perfect curve between both of the inner and outer curves. We can go up here. I can go ahead and apply that curve. Now that I have that, and I know the sizing is right, this is where I'll just delete what I originally had, make a clone of this shape, bring it down, and on this one, I don't need the full thing. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut these, get rid of this path. This is all I need. I'll bring this over and snap it so I know it's in alignment, drag it over to right about there. I might go in just a little bit, kind of like there, something like that's fine. Now on this, I can just move this anchor over until it snaps to the previous one here. And then I can select this, clone it, move this down into place, and then get the exact same kind of offset positioning on that. Then I'll just move these over until they snap like this. On this one, I'm going to bring this all the way over, and I'm just going to move it down like this because now I want to drag this back, snap it here, go back to my rounding tool. And by the way, you can do these rounds with the corner fillet in Illustrator. You don't have to use a plugin. I just prefer the plugin, so that's the one I usually default to. I want this to be a larger curve, so I'm going to pull this down further. And we'll go ahead and curve this. Something like that's fine. And now all we have to do is select these paths, select this one. Oops, I had it selected. Select this arch, and we'll go back to the shape building tool. Once again, this is the absolute best use of the shape building tool is this kind of building. It just, before the shape building tool is a major pain to use the scissor tool to do this kind of detailing. So really does help. It's one of the better tools Adobe's added. They actually thought through it all the way. They don't always do that. A lot of their new features are kind of half-baked, but they did a good job on that one. So I'm going to copy it just to get this curve. Once we have that, then I can bring it down like this. I can go ahead and copy it down to get the bottom one. Select those two, go to the shape building tool, hold option, trim it. That gives me all the elements I need for these wings. So I'm going to select them, clone them, Command C, Command F, find a central anchor point, and reflect it over. If we zoom out, you can see all the paths. So this is how I build the base art for this. If we go back to layers, now I'm just going to have to assign a thickness to this stroke. Right now it's 1 point. Well, it might be, yeah, it should all be 1 point, but I want it more than 1 point. I actually, let's check the beard. I don't remember if I rounded it. Okay, I did. I rounded those. That you want to check. So I think on this, we want to go a lot beefier. So we're going to beef it up to like 4. I think that's fine. And I'm going to make this black now because everything black now will actually be the gaps in between colored artwork. And I do notice this one. You see how this little part kind of comes to a point and it's peeking through on this? So this is a good example of going to the strokes and go round corners, and it'll resolve that. So pay attention to that because when you work in this style, you will run into that at times. So I can see we don't have the round cap on that one, so we'll add round cap on that as well. And I think up here, I am going to do what I thought I might want to do. I'm going to make a clone of this. I'm going to go 1, 2. This is 4, so I'm going to go 3, 4. So now it's just side by side. Now I'm going to add another 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it creates the same negative distance in between those. And all I'm doing here is just adding a simplified kind of pattern of sorts. So we'll do that. I think I'm going to do it like 3 more times or so. We'll clone this like that. In this case, we can just snap it. I think I'm going to do it one more. Get rid of that one. Now, there we go. And these just need to merge into this, so you don't technically have to hit a snap on that, but if you can, it's good as well. So I think that looks good. We'll go ahead and select these, make a copy, and we'll go to the reflect tool, find a central anchor point, and reflect them over. So now we have all the base work. So once I get to this point and I want to start coloring, I usually will save this layer. I'll save it, meaning I'll make a copy of it, that is. So I'm going to go duplicate build. And just so you know what I'm doing, we'll put expand here because that's what we're going to do now. I think on this, I think I'm going to make this corner. So let's zoom in so you know what I'm doing. This comes to a point. I think this would look better rounded too. So I'm just going to put the round corners on that. Like that. It's easier to do at this stage than try to fix it after you expand it. So once I get this done, this is where I'll usually save a copy of this, meaning I'll have everything selected and I'll just hit my F3 key, which Command C, Command F, and brings to front. Then I'll group it so it's all one group. Then I'll just drag and drop it into my X layer, which is like my vector junk drawer. That way, if I'm working and I ever want to come back to my original, boom, there it is. It's just a habit I got into years ago, and I still do it. So we're going to take all this artwork now, and we're just going to expand it. And we're just going to go to path, and we're going to go to outline stroke. It takes all the strokes now, and it turns them into shapes. But notice they're independent shapes. So this shape is now with this shape, and all we have to do now is we need to fuse them. And sometimes you're going to get redundant anchor points when you do this, but it's okay. We'll go ahead and click Unite. So it's going to fuse everything. Now if we go to Keyline again, you can see all those intermediate areas are all fused together. But you have these tiny little areas. And on this style, this is where I just go in with the direct select these, like here, and this artifact. And we're just going to delete those. Those aren't really needed. Let's go back and check. We have one more in the teeth, and you know, technically, I'll probably, well, let's see, how big is that one? Yeah, that one's kind of big enough that I'm just going to leave it. Now, it's at this point that right now our art is just black, so everything showing in the inside of it, which is white, is just see-through. So this is where we'll go to Object, Compound Path, and we'll go Release. You might have to ungroup this a few times. I'm going to deselect the outermost shape like that, and I'm going to fill all the interior shapes white or whatever color you wanted. So now we just have a big black shape sitting behind a lot of islands of white floating on top of it. Now you can see it kind of messes up the hierarchy, but that's okay. Okay, I'll select like the circular shapes on the side, in the top forehead, his eyes, and the mouth shape itself. We'll select the black on the outside, and then I'm just going to go F4, which pushes everything to the back of the other shapes. Then I can go in on these, isolate the way it should look, minus front to get those donut shapes back that make up the eyes, make up the forehead. Everything else is showing up the way it should now. This one thing, at certain zoom levels, it's actually hard to select certain objects. I don't know why that is. It wasn't always that way in Illustrator. It's just gotten progressively worse over the years, in my opinion. And it slows down like this. It wants to rotate instead of just select the damn vector shape. And this is where, at times, you have to zoom in order to select certain shapes. That shouldn't be the case. I don't know why Illustrator can't get their act together. Well, I know exactly why that happens. It's because there is zero people on the AI team that actually use the software they develop for. So that's why it's never fixed, because they don't see it as a problem. You can notice, because we use round cap on here, you see how it added, like here specifically, it added an extra anchor point there We don't want that. So this is why I use tools, because Illustrator's too dumb to know that's not what you'd want. A smart program would know nobody would want that. And so I'm going to show you a really great plugin, and why I use Astute Graphics is we're going to go to, it's called Vector Scribe. We're going to go specifically to Smart Remove Brush. And so what you can do is I can just brush over these areas and it just removes those, but notice it doesn't destroy the path. It doesn't destroy, it's smart enough to know you're removing it, but you don't want to destroy your existing path, and that's why I use it. There is no way to do that in Illustrator out of the box. Now, on their iPad app for AI, which in my opinion is Adobe Illustrator Lite, you can do Smart Remove, but it's still not as easy as it is with the plugin. And by the way, the plugin existed like 7 years before Illustrator decided to do it. And full disclosure, they kind of tried to buy that company, but that never happened. So instead, they just ripped off the features. So sorry, Adobe, that's the truth. You know it. Now what we're going to do is I want to beef up this outer line. So we're going to go ahead and add an outline to this. I'll go to stroke, and let's see what it looks like with a certain outline. Actually, I think that looks pretty good. So that's kind of the outline I want around this, just to emphasize it. The inner detail is thinner lines. And so I'll go ahead and I'll expand this outline like that. And then we'll go ahead unite. And that gives us everything we need. Everything is shapes now. If you go to Keyline, you can see it. And this is the time-consuming part and why I love using plugins to do certain kinds of detailing. In this specific case, the detailing is rounding. This is where I'll go in on shapes like this, and I'll use my rounding tool because I don't want everything to come to a sharp vertex, you know. And so this is where I'll use Astute Graphics Dynamic Corners rounding tool just to add this kind of rounding on elements, because it makes it look more custom. And you can select one and apply it to a different corner. You don't have to pre-select the anchors. I find the rounding tool in AI can get in the way at times. If you're not zoomed in, you go to select an anchor to move it, it'll round something by accident. That's why I usually kind of disable it and turn it off. And if you ever want to do that, all you have to do is go to View and go to Hide Corner Widget, and then it won't get in your way. Because sometimes it does get in the way, like that. And we'll go ahead and round that. So I just go in and round anything that I think is going to look better rounded. I think all these shapes that make up these areas, we'll go ahead and round all these like that. Now, because we're creating this symmetrically, I'll even add a nice little round right there. We already did all of these wings on the left side, so no reason to redo it. We'll just select these, clone it, Command-C, Command-F, find a central anchor point, and flip it over. So that's the nice thing about symmetry, is that if you've done one side, you don't have to redo it again. I think I did that a little too much. Want it to be exactly the same. There we go. Once again, sometimes it's easier just to zoom in so you can see this stuff. So once I determine a roundness in case of the eye detail here, I'll just click and apply it to all the other corners within these shapes as well. That way there's a continuity to it, like that. We'll go ahead, I'll just delete the things over here, and then that'll remind me to reflect those things. This part doesn't really go fast because I kind of zoom in, look at things, and just decide if I want to round them or not. We'll just keep rounding this. All these will get the exact same round. Does it matter that you round, you may ask? I think it just makes it look so much better. It just has more of a custom kind of feel to it. It doesn't look so computer driven and replicated. That's the one thing with vector art is it comes to an extreme point at times and it looks dagger sharp, like it's going to poke your eye out. And that's good in context of creating brand icons and logos, but not always. I think you want to give it a little bit of humanity, and I think this kind of rounding is really good. Now, the irony, historically speaking, is that when logos were, when branding in its traditional heyday with like Saul Bass and Paul Rand back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, everything, they didn't have vector art. They didn't have computer graphics. Everything was done traditionally, meaning if they drew out a logo, they were doing it about 40 inches by 40 inches on a cold press illustration board and inking it with rapidograph pens and using French curves and using triangles and circle templates, all that. And they would get it absolutely precise at that size. Then they'd take it to an optical camera called a stat camera, and then they'd shoot it down for different usages and make what were called slick sheets. And those slick sheets were provided to publications and newspapers and what have you, and then they would paste it up on a board, and that would become a mechanical, and that mechanical would be, once again, placed back into an optical camera, and they would shoot plates to create, in, let's say, a full color ad, for example. So that's how I learned everything traditionally in art school. But when I was a freshman in college is when Apple came out with their first machine called the Apple II. I taught myself how to do Apple Basic coding, although my parents couldn't afford an Apple computer. At the time, an Apple computer back then, it was over $5,000. I mean, that's a ton of cash back then. I can get a brand new iMac now. It doesn't come anywhere close to $5,000. So, of course, I didn't have one of those. But what I did, Apple licensed BASIC to other computer manufacturers. So at the time, Texas Instruments had a computer called the Timex Sinclair 1000, and that's where I learned Apple BASIC and started writing programs, Path Adventures. I wrote a program to organize my baseball cards, all kinds of things. And it was a lot of fun. So we'll just take all these shapes now on the right that we don't need because we can reflect over the ear, the cheek, all the teeth here on the right side, inside the mouth, and the beard elements down here. We'll get rid of those. I just realized I need to round the tongue. Anything that kind of transcends from left to right or right to left based off of the order you're doing. I think I'm going to leave that just as is. I don't need to round that. Like that. That's fine. Let's go ahead and select all the elements we need to copy over. We'll do that. This part, we'll get the ear, we'll get the teeth, inside the mouth, beard elements minus the central one. And I think, nope. We need the eye, like that. I forgot to do that. I'll do that afterwards. We'll select this part. I think that's it. We'll clone it. I'll find a central anchor point and we'll reflect it over. And the only part I forgot is this part. Okay, I did round it. Okay, we'll clone that too and reflect that over. There. So once again, that part doesn't go fast with the rounding, but I think it looks a lot more, I don't know, approachable when it doesn't have all those really sharp vertices. Now let's go back to layers because this is where the fun starts. And by the way, if I'm unsure about something and I want to test it before I commit to it, that's usually what I use a temp layer for. I'll copy elements to that, or maybe I need to reuse a shape later on. I'll put it in my temp layer and turn it off, and then if I need it, I can access it. So this is for building purposes. I didn't really use that, but I left it in just to explain that. Now we're going to do some coloring on this. So let's go ahead and start applying colors to this. And we'll start with, I don't know, we'll start with his nose. And this is where, by the way, you might be wondering why I pulled these kind of create these swatches of sorts on the desktop. It's because I did it for 15 years when I used Macromedia freehand. You could pull swatches out of their swatches palette, put them on the desktop, and it was a lot easier to do color exploration and to see what values look like next to each other. It's hard to do that, even in the largest preview in swatches in the swatches palette. So I just manually do this. And in an upcoming movie, I'll show you a script I had made that a friend of mine put together that creates these for me automatically, and I'll share that with you. But in this case, I'll just do this, and I'll just use the eyedropper tool. I forgot something. These two elements, let's select this and move to back because I forgot these circular shapes in his head. There we go. Let me double. Okay, yeah. Now we'll select these two shapes. By the way, I do that all the time when I'm working. So you just normally, I'm not showing people the mistakes I made, but that's part of the creative process. Creative process can be pretty sloppy at times. As long as you get good results, it doesn't really matter. Let's go ahead. We'll color this. We'll do turquoise like that. That looks good. Select these two out here. Select those areas. Maybe it drops all the way down into his beard. Get the same color. I try to balance the colors. Like I don't want the same color right next to each other. So if there's complementary colors that are going to work good, that's what I try to use. I think these could be gold. Kind of like that. Maybe these eyes red, perhaps. And maybe a pink. And I'm trying to keep the left and right kind of balanced in this respect. Maybe the bags under his eyes, probably light purple or violet, same difference. You know, based off of whether you call something purple or violet, that's one way you can tell somebody's age, because the further back you go, most people said purple. The further in the future you go, most people refer to it as violet. So it's like potato, tomato, same thing, doesn't matter. Okay, now we'll select this. I think I'm going to go a little darker shade of orange. We'll make that the pink. Inside of his mouth, we want that dark, so we'll do a dark purple. And his tongue, that'll be red. Maybe this is red too. I think we'll reflect the color there. Maybe that's the same lighter hue there. I want these white, but we'll address those last because I think I know how I want to handle those. Color these red. And we'll make these purple. You get his beard. Maybe that's purple too. These two here, we'll color them orange and get more green into this. A green beard. Like that. Okay, maybe the inside of the ears are purple. That goes good with an orange. Maybe this orange needs to be dark orange. Or maybe this needs to be dark orange and this needs to be lighter orange. This is where I'll play with colors for a long time to try to figure out what I'm going to do. I think I'll leave it there. That's fine. Now, when it comes to white, because in context of the final design I have in mind, this is just part of the elements. I think it works good as an isolated design as it's shown here, but I don't want these distinct white. So this is where, and one reason why I use global colors. So all these colors that have a triangle right on the bottom, white triangle on the right bottom of the swatch, that means they're global. I always use global colors. And there's a good reason for that. It's because it makes kind of controlling color a lot easier. So if I select all the elements here in the wings at the top of his head, and let's say we go with this, either this blue or we could use this blue. Let's see what this blue looks like. I don't mind that. I think I want to go with a little lighter hue of blue. So this is the base color. And this is where I usually start. And I'll start here and I go, well, I know I don't want it blue. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all these elements in the top row. And let's say these are closer to the light source. So what I'm going to do is go to color. It shows the color blue, but because it's a swatch, I can make a tint. So I'm going to make these, I don't know, maybe like 18%. So they look white, but they have a nice little tint in them. Then I'm going to go ahead and select the next level down. This is further away from the light source. So maybe we go 45, something like that. And this one down, we'll go to 60. And then the one that's in the darkest area, I don't know, go 80 maybe, like that. So that's kind of how I handle that kind of stuff. It just looks better in just white. Same thing with his teeth. His teeth are okay white, but I just think it'll just look a little better if we handle it a little differently. So what we can do, we did 45 here, so I think that'll be the darkest I want it, like that. And then we'll go to the next one. It's 45. We'll go, I don't know, 25. Then I'll select the next one down, and I'll just go progressively less. So in this one, I'll go 15, like that. And then the one closest to the viewer, this will barely have any in it, just 7. And then I can just sample off of these and apply it to the other side with the eyedropper, like that. So that's how I go about creating this design, coloring this design. Now, in all reality, if I go ahead and center this again, the final design was in a greater context, but it used all the same principles of building, just geometric building, hardly any pen tool use in terms of Bezier curves. And this was the final artwork as you see here. If I go ahead and zoom out on this, like this, you can see the whole design. Let's go ahead and just kind of zoom in on it like that. This is how it turned out. I call this free thinker. It's just whatever ideas pop in my head, I just create it. This was a lot of fun. I think this is a style anybody could do. Now, last year, I did a complete art series called Modern Culture. This shows a bunch of designs from that. And Modern Culture was created in the exact same methodology. I did not use the pen tool to do any kind of complex vector shapes. And it's amazing what you can create. These had themes all over the map, from my favorite sci-fi characters to animals, to mystics with a third eye, to skulls, to hippos, or even a guy wearing his tidy whities down here. So I encourage all creatives to draw, whether or not you ever want to be an illustrator. That's not the point. It helps with cognition and ideation, and you don't have to be a fine art drawer to draw a design we created in this movie. So it's going to help you to work out and think through a design before you try to build it in vector form. It'll serve as a roadmap, and that's always going to improve your craftsmanship and quality when it's all said and done. But this style really doesn't require extensive drawing skills. Just think in shapes, and you'll be able to create simple geometry. And when combined with colors and a few simple patterns, it really makes visuals intriguing. If you like this movie, please consider sharing a link to my YouTube channel on your social media. I'd really appreciate that. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe as well. As always, the exercise files can be accessed through the description of this movie below. I have a lot more movies I've developed, and if you're subscribed, you'll be notified when they are added. Thank you for watching People of Process. I hope this content helps you improve your own creative process.